Here's what's coming up on your horizon. Local lawmakers may well be looking under every sofa cushion to try to fill a $300 million budget hole this session. We'll look at how an effort now a decade old may not solve the problem, but sure could help.
To me, it's $271 million that common schools would not have had if we didn't have the lottery.
We begin a series of reports on one of Oklahoma's most iconic companies, Phillips 66.
We think that there's a place for everything, whether it's solar, nuclear, biofuels. Everybody's got a place. We can't just look at one fuel for the good of the nation.
We'll see how one Oklahoma craftsman is turning a growing headache for landowners into a growing business opportunity for himself.
This is all Oklahoma, from the tree to the logger to the mill to the manufacturer.
And we'll end our day with an Oklahoman who's used her mother's inspiration to follow her business dreams.
I'm doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I feel 100% complete.
Stay with us for Oklahoma Horizon.
Oklahoma Horizon is made possible by the Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education.
Oklahoma's investment in CareerTech provides more than nationally recognized technology education and training. It produces solid financial returns for the state's economic future. Oklahoma CareerTech, elevating our economy.
And the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping good people grow good things. And now, from the CareerTech studios in Stillwater, here's your host, Rob McClendon.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here on Horizon. Well, Oklahoma has a hole, to be exact, a $300 million revenue hole in the state budget. And it's our state lawmakers' primary function to fill it, a shortfall that has only been exacerbated by shrinking tax revenue from falling oil prices and a cut in the state income tax that goes into place this summer. By all indications, state services will once again go under the knife this session as lawmakers do not have any of the one-time monies they used to fill similar budget holes last year. All the while, Oklahoma prisons are in threat of a federal takeover due to the lack of state funding, while education funding continues to be a sore spot for both parents and teachers.
It is my privilege to introduce to you the governor of the great state of Oklahoma, Governor Mary Fallin.
As lawmakers begin a new session, they face an old problem, a budget shortfall.
We all know Oklahoma currently faces substantial budget cuts and budget challenges, and we will have some budget cuts.
Cuts in state services that Minority House Leader Scott Edmonds says is the legislature's own doing.
I think when you look at the actual numbers and the fact that our economy is growing, the state's doing relatively well, the fact that we actually have about $100 million coming into the state coffers this year, more than what we had last year, but yet we have $300 million fewer to spend in actual budgetary items, it has to lead to only one conclusion, and that's that the legislative leadership of the Capitol has sort of let the state down.
That's because growth in Oklahoma's economy last year triggers a quarter-point reduction in the state income tax this year, even though gross production taxes have begun to fall due to lower energy prices. Mickey Hepner is dean of the OCU Business School.
And this is one of the reasons why I don't really support tax cuts that are set to take effect in future years, because we never quite know what the economic conditions are when they take effect. And here we have a tax cut coming into effect right at arguably the worst time for it to do so.
But according to Governor Fallin, this year's budget hole has less to do with the revenue coming in and more to do with mandatory off-the-top spending and apportionments.
Our current budget system diverts billions of dollars away from the General Revenue Fund before the budgeting process begins, either to support various government programs or pay for tax credits or incentives, or to fill unused revolving funds maintained by some state agencies.
And while the legislature filled some of last year's budget holes with state agency carryover money, reducing the number of tax credits given out by the state proved to be a much more difficult proposition.
If there's a significant tax credit out there, it's on the books in part because some special interest group came to the Capitol and convinced legislative leaders, either recently or in years past, to put it on the books. And so if you're going to try to take it off the books, well, that same special interest group, and now maybe even more folks who are now taking advantage of that same special interest tax credit. They're all going to come to the Capitol and beat up on legislative leaders and say, don't you dare touch that. And they're going to create this woe is me. If you do it, then the world is, the Chicken Little, the sky's going to fall if you eliminate this tax credit. All of those scenarios will play themselves out this session. And I think because of that, if I were a betting man and you put me on the spot and said, are we going to have real significant tax credit reform this year? I'd say maybe for new ones that come on the books, we may put together a good rubric to say we're going to be more stringent in how we apply new tax credits. But I'm not real optimistic that we're going to make any real significant changes to the tax credits that are currently existing.
So just how the legislature fills the current budget hole may well be the key question of this session, with their answer certainly having long-term implications on everything from education to health care to public safety and transportation. Now, when first proposed, many had hoped the Oklahoma Lottery would help fill budget gaps in education funding. In the subsequent decade, what we've seen is not the financial windfall some had predicted, but more of a targeted solution to help schools buy equipment and fund programs they otherwise would not be able to afford. With more on that, our Andy Barth is at our state capitol.
Well, Rob, in 2004, Oklahomans overwhelmingly voted for the Oklahoma Education Lottery Act, sending net proceeds from lottery games straight to Oklahoma's education system. And 10 years later, those proceeds continue to grow.
From scratch tickets to the big jackpot, as Oklahomans try to strike it rich, they also invest in Oklahoma's future.
The ultimate beneficiary are the school children of Oklahoma, all the way from K through 12 in CareerTech programs and in higher education. And ultimately, the state benefits by having a better educated, better funded education system.
Rollo Redburn is the executive director of the Oklahoma Lottery, a program he says is a large financial supporter of Oklahoma education.
The money that has been appropriated to K through 12 by the legislature, that has totaled about, this last year it's about $271 million has gone to common schools.
A large sum of money, yet Redburn says some Oklahomans aren't impressed.
I've heard that people who are not lottery supporters try to figure out how to detract from that contribution. But, to me, it's $271 million that common schools would not have had if we didn't have the lottery.
And while common education is the largest beneficiary, in total, nearly $650 million has been raised for education. Higher ed receives nearly 40%, and teachers' retirement, school consolidation, and CareerTech each receives 5%. And at Meridian Tech in Stillwater, Deanna Little says the money wasn't difficult to get.
We just identified the need and showed the impact that would have on the students and the future, workforce in the counties that we serve.
Meridian Tech used their money to upgrade their Mazak machine, a vital component to their product development and machining program. The cost, $32,000. And Little says it wouldn't have been possible without the lottery.
The lottery funds were vital for us to enhance the program. Very expensive pieces of equipment that we wouldn't have been able to do without the grant money.
And for instructor Jimmy Williams, lottery dollars enable students to use industry standard equipment.
It's a good justification because we did purchase this equipment in which everybody has. If you go out to the small shops, everybody's running Hoss equipment.
And despite the criticism, Redburn is happy with the lottery's contributions.
Overall, the lottery through this fiscal year we just completed has contributed more than $600 million to education programs in Oklahoma. And I don't care who you are, you can't tell me that's not a success.
Well, now the Oklahoma Lottery definitely has its critics. Some believe the lottery doesn't give enough to education, while others are simply against the gambling aspect.
So what about those fears that the lottery could contribute to gambling addiction?
Well, Rob, before last year, the Oklahoma Lottery gave $500,000 annually to the state of Oklahoma to help with gambling addiction treatment. This year, they gave $750,000, and they will be continuing to do that for the foreseeable future.
All right, thanks so much, Andy.
You're welcome, Rob.
Now, when we return, a legacy industry for the state that is looking towards the future.
You're watching Oklahoma Horizon, featuring some of the good things that are happening in the great state of Oklahoma.
Well, it's been said one of the surest predictors of failure is success. And this makes the success of Oklahoma's Phillips 66 all the more impressive. In a team report, we take a look at a company that continues to be a bedrock industry for the state. Our Austin Moore starts us off.
It isn't flashy. A nice building, to be sure. But from the facade of the main building at the Phillips 66 Research Center outside of Bartlesville, you could hardly guess the history this place has influenced.
Some of the wonderful things that have been invented here at the Research Center are just phenomenal.
Merle Lindstrom is the Phillips 66 Vice President for Technology.
Things like 100-octane gasoline for the big Merlin engines in World War II that basically won the war over Europe. HF alkylation that allowed us to make very pure, very clean gasoline for the domestic market.
But the discoveries went far beyond fuel. A happy accident here led to two revolutionary plastics.
Crystalline polypropylene and high-density polyethylene truly changed the world. I mean, just look at where plastics are used in everything. And two gentlemen were trying to make gasoline. They were taking ethylene and propylene and trying to make gasoline, and they got the solid come out of their reactor and were smart enough to try to figure out what it was, and lo and behold, they developed these two world-changing plastics.
The first commercial success for these plastics was childhood favorite, the hula hoop. But that was only the beginning. Today, we can find those plastics and those spawned from research since in almost every aspect of our daily lives. Not bad for a facility originally created by Frank Phillips in response to a lawsuit.
He got sued by another company that said he was infringing on their patent for distillation of what was then called natural gasoline. So he hired a PhD chemist to help do some research to win that lawsuit. Turned out he won. He thought, man, this is great. Research is wonderful, so he expanded it.
Expanded might be something of an understatement. Today, the facility has close to 1 million square feet under roof and houses roughly 1,000 workers, nearly half of which are employees of Phillips 66. The other half includes a few corporate partners and tenants. This staff, diverse both culturally and in field of study, makes for an exciting atmosphere for exploration.
The scientists and engineers that we have out here, by nature, they're inherently curious. You wonder, why do things work? Why does it happen this way? And as a result of that natural curiosity, people start to think about things. Pretty soon you get people thinking about things, they start talking differently. Just having those discussions brings out whole new ideas.
But Lindstrom makes sure this group spends a fair amount of time improving themselves, especially their communications.
It's not good enough just to do the research. You have to convert it into information that's actually usable. And so that whole process is very, very important.
Making sure the information they generate continues down the pipeline.
Now, when we return, Elisa Hines will join us with a look at Phillips 66 future. Want to share something you've seen here today? Well, all of our episodes are streaming on our YouTube channel at Oklahoma Horizon TV. Or you can subscribe to our weekly free podcasts on iTunes. Well, while many people think of Phillips 66 as just an iconic gasoline brand, researchers at the company have much of their focus on the fuels of the future. Joining me now is our Elisa Hines.
That's right, Rob. Phillips 66 is on the cutting edge when it comes to products made from oil and natural gas, like plastics you find in your cars, even electronics. But they're also looking at creating different forms of energy.
For the foreseeable future, oil and gas will power the world. Yet researchers at Phillips 66 are preparing for a time when it doesn't.
We've been looking at all forms of energy, whether it's solar energy. We have a research group looking at organics, photovoltaics. We have another research group that's looking at fuel cells, because there is so much natural gas right now that if we can convert fuel cells to being able to use natural gas as opposed to hydrogen, we open up a whole new market. The distribution system's already there.
Like a solid oxide fuel cell, which engineer David Bearshank says can convert hydrocarbon fuels to electricity.
So if you supply the fuel to one side of the cell, or the membrane, and air to the other side, it will generate electricity for you. There are a number of reasons why we're interested in the technology. One of them is grid reliability. So if you look at power disruptions in the United States, they're growing more frequent over time. And a lot of this is because their transmission and distribution infrastructure is aging. And so this technology could be used to build a modular power plant that you could drop in close to the user and generate electricity close to the point of consumption. So you eliminate the grid and it can be significantly more reliable.
A small technology with big implications.
The cell is about 0.5 millimeter thick. What we're focusing on is developing a cell technology. The cell is the core technology, if you will, to an eventual system. And then the cells that we've made these cells, this is one of these cells right here. This generates the electricity. And then each one of these operates at about 1 volt. And so these get connected in series to build up the voltage for an eventual power plant. And where we are right now in our research program is we're at the cell level and we're getting ready to begin to make our first stacks where we connect the cells in series to boost the power output from the device. It's a very scalable technology and it's also a very compact technology. When you compare it to solar, solar requires a very large surface area to generate the electricity. These cells can be packed into a very tight package to generate electricity on a very small scale. So all this makes it very attractive as a future power generation source.
A promising technology moving the world forward to more sustainable energy sources.
We think that there's a place for everything, whether it's solar, nuclear, biofuels. Everybody's got a place. We can't just look at one fuel for the good of the nation.
Solutions to everyday problems being solved right here in Oklahoma at Phillips 66.
Now, when we spoke with Merle Lindstrom, he did tell us that while Phillips 66 has many successes, their failures are just as important. Because as he puts it, isn't it just as important for people to know what doesn't work as to what does work? Because if it doesn't work, you don't want somebody to try again in 10 years and find out it still doesn't work.
All right, thanks so much, Elise.
You're welcome, Rob.
Now, we will be bringing you more about Phillips 66 in the coming weeks, and we do have an interesting story from Merle Lindstrom about how geopolitics can affect their bottom line. To see that, just head to okhorizon.com and look under this week's value-added section.
Still to come on Oklahoma Horizon, turning a family tragedy into a business triumph. But first, a homegrown solution.
Well, if you've been finding a runny nose and watery eyes, you're not alone. Red cedar pollen is at its peak in the state and giving many of us allergy fits. This from a tree that has become both an environmental and an economic problem. But as they say, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Here's our J.D. Roseman.
Rob, eastern red cedar trees have become a nuisance for landowners across Oklahoma. Yet one man is turning these pesky troublemakers into a successful business.
With sawdust flying and machinery running, beautiful red cedar cabinets are being created.
I started taking woodworking classes down at Moore Norman Votech and furniture making. Did it for about 5 years and really enjoyed it in the evenings. We bought a house and renovated it, and Becky wanted a cedar closet. So I went and tried to find cedar paneling and couldn't find any. I found some paneling, but it was very thin. It was tongue and groove. I had to prepare the walls with strips of wood, and and the quality just wasn't there. So I looked for others and couldn't find it.
And with that, Ken set out to fill the void.
There weren't any cabinets being made locally. No one was making paneling. And so I bought the paneling that I could find. I actually ordered it out of Missouri, and it's not the best quality. So I started making paneling, and I showed our closet to several people, and people would say, "This is great, I want one." And so that's how we got started.
And today, Ken's operation is entirely made in Oklahoma.
I could get lumber out of Arkansas. I could get lumber out of Missouri. I could get lumber out of Texas. But my whole shtick was this is all Oklahoma, from the tree to the logger to the mill to the manufacturer.
Yet, the supply chain isn't always reliable.
I've just teamed up with a fellow who's a harvester, and we are probably going to put in a sawmill. I've come to the conclusion that we're going to have to control the process from the very beginning through the product.
And Ken's product is made with his own twist.
We made it a little bit different. I saw the pitfalls of what was out there, and with the furniture making background, I thought this could be made to work better. So we did ours, instead of doing a tongue and groove, we did a splined groove, and we did it in such a way where you don't have to do any wall preparation. So we made moldings that would actually hold the stuff on the wall.
Not only are Ken's cabinets beautiful, but by utilizing Oklahoma red cedar, he's helping stop a growing problem.
They say we have 1.4 million acres of agriculturally viable land that is now made useless by eastern red cedar, with 4 million acres at risk.
Turning a nuisance into a beautiful work of art, all while keeping everything local.
You can keep up with us throughout the week. Just head to okhorizon.com, where you can see more of any of our stories, read our reporters behind the scenes blogs, see what others are saying about us on Twitter, and face the facts with our regular updates. So reach out and touch us anywhere and anytime. Well, the death of a parent is certainly difficult, but for one Oklahoman, it's also been a bittersweet inspiration. Our Courtney May has her story.
Well, Rob, the loss of a parent has inspired one Oklahoma small business owner to follow her dreams. Lisa New is the owner of a rodeo bling business that began as a hobby and has quickly developed into a full-time job.
If you bring it, Lisa New will bling it. Halters, steerheads, saddles, and more, all with bling.
About 4 years ago, my mother passed away. I spent a lot of time with her, and when she did pass, I found myself lost. And since I love horses and I have all this stuff, breast collars and head stalls, I decided to start blinging some. And it's been really good to me.
Didn't even think about it, but I probably. And Lisa's homegrown business is attracting customers from across the nation.
I have saddles here that I haven't even met that people have sent to me from Missouri, North Dakota, and they trust in me to sell their saddles and just send them money. I love that.
And if owning a bling business isn't enough, she also finds time to run a full-service dog grooming business.
I have over 600 active clients, and they are very, very loyal to me. And they come. Rain, shine, sleet, snow, it doesn't matter. They're very loyal to me. Even when I had my hip surgery, I gave them a choice to go somewhere else or did they want to wait on me, and they said they'd wait on me. So it's pretty touching. They're like family.
Lisa says working with animals makes her 18-hour days feel as if it's not work at all.
To get up every morning and have animals, to work with animals, is just an amazing feeling. I don't know how to explain it. I don't know how come I become so blessed, but I am.
So whether it's well-groomed pooches or star-studded leather, Lisa loves every minute of it.
This was definitely a diamond in the rough. Whether it takes off and does a million things, I don't know where it's going to take me, but I'm on it for the ride. I love it. I'm doing exactly what I was supposed to do. I feel 100% complete. I miss my mom, of course, not to enjoy it with me, but it's an amazing journey, and I'm just going to keep going with it till it ends. It always comes to an end.
With not one but 2 jobs, working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week, and with more than 600 active clients, Lisa still knows all of the dogs she grooms by name.
All right, thanks so much, Court.
You're welcome, Rob.
Next time on Oklahoma Horizon, we'll examine what the long-anticipated reopening of the Cuban market could mean for a key Oklahoma industry.
Oklahoma wheat producers and U.S. wheat producers are extremely excited about this announcement. Oklahoma in particular has realized the importance of the Cuban market for wheat exports for a long time, and we're hoping that we can take some opportunities in the future.
Cuban trade and more on Oklahoma Show Over the Heartland, Oklahoma Horizon. I'm Rob McClendon. Thanks for watching. See you back here next week.